First off, I just want to be clear that what happened was kind of a mix-up on both our ends. I'm 26 and my boyfriend is 25, and he ended up making plans with his friends this week, which just so happened to fall on the day of our very first anniversary. This was supposed to be the first time we celebrated any kind of milestone together, and it was something we had talked about for a while. The problem was that we both kept mixing up the actual date, since work has been overwhelming for both of us. We knew all month that it was coming up, but before we nailed down the exact day, he had already told me about his plans. Because our schedules rarely line up, he usually checks with me before committing to anything on his days off, in case one of us was hoping to meet after work. At the time, I didn't connect that his plans clashed with our anniversary, so I told him it was totally fine and even encouraged him to go. But today, it finally hit me, and I realized we both messed up. I know it might sound silly, but I feel really emotional about it. It's our first anniversary, and it feels like such a waste to miss it. Part of me can't help but feel a little hurt that he even made plans that day in the first place. I know that's unfair and hypocritical since I also lost track of the date, but I guess I just wish he'd somehow remembered and kept it in the back of his mind, even if I hadn't. Now I don't know if it's something I should bring up to him at all. I definitely don't feel like I can ask him to cancel on his friends, especially since I already told him I was fine with it and he committed to them. When I told him today that the date falls on our anniversary, he didn't say anything about canceling or changing his plans. A part of me was secretly hoping he'd offer, but he didn't. I even considered asking my job if I could take the day off, since it lines up with his day off too. That way we could maybe do something together before or after he meets his friends. The thing is, in the past he's been pretty against squeezing me in on days when he already has plans, so I'm not sure it would work anyway. Honestly, I don't even know what kind of advice I'm looking for. I realize we could easily celebrate on another day, and it's not like we won't have more anniversaries. But this being the first one makes it feel special, and it's disappointing that we let it slip away like this. Should I be honest about feeling upset, or would that just make him feel guilty for no reason? Someone commented to me that it's better not to pressure him to change his plans now or try to stack another plan on top of his busy day. Instead, they suggested I just let him know I'd like to celebrate properly on another day soon, when we can actually relax and enjoy it. They also said it's fine to admit I feel a little sad that we both got the dates mixed up, as long as I recognize it doesn't mean either of us has to do anything drastic about it. And they're right. I think part of me thought doing something the same day would fix it, but honestly, it would only add stress and time pressure, which isn't worth it. So I decided to just let it go and make sure we plan something special together later. Update. My boyfriend, the same one I mentioned earlier, has a friend, let's call him Dave. And here's where things get a lot more complicated. Dave is one of his coworkers, and they've been friends for a while now. He's openly gay, and I've met him several times. Up until recently, I never had an issue with him at all. In fact, we always got along fine. But everything shifted a few months ago. Dave lives on the same street as my boyfriend, and one night after they all went out with work colleagues, they were dropped off together at Dave's house. My boyfriend planned to walk home from there. I had been texting him before bed, and around 3 a.m., he sent me a message saying he was on his way home. I was already asleep by then. The next morning, I saw that message and also noticed that just after 5 a.m., he texted me again saying he was finally home. That struck me as odd, because from Dave's place it should have been about a 30-minute walk. I figured maybe he forgot to text when he first got in, but it still didn't add up. When I asked him about it, he explained that everyone had shared the same Uber and because of all the drop-offs, it took him about an hour to get back. But that still didn't explain why the "I'm home" message came through at 5 a.m. I even asked if he had stayed at Dave's for afters, but he denied it. He didn't even bother to give me some filler excuse like, "Oh, I forgot to text." The whole thing felt off, but I decided to drop it, even though I could tell he wasn't being fully transparent. On our next date night, he finally admitted he hadn't told me the whole truth. He said that while he was walking home, Dave suddenly came running after him. Apparently, Dave confessed that he's had strong feelings for my boyfriend for a long time and wanted to know if he'd be open to starting something with him. My boyfriend told me he was shocked and reminded Dave that he's straight and already in a relationship with me. Dave asked if even a small part of him was curious to try something, but he said no. I wasn't furious about the confession itself, though it did bother me that Dave tried to proposition him that way. What really bugged me was why my boyfriend felt the need to keep it secret for days instead of just telling me. When I pressed him on it, he admitted he thought I might overreact. And when I asked why he assumed that, he ended up revealing there was more to the story, apparently, while Dave was pouring his heart out. When my boyfriend finally told me the full story, he admitted that while Dave was confessing his feelings, he also started talking badly about me. Dave doesn't really know me that well. Like I mentioned before, our interactions had always seemed polite and even pleasant, but apparently he was telling my boyfriend that I wasn't good enough for him and that he could do much better. He threw in a bunch of other disrespectful comments too. That stung. It wasn't just the fact that he was trying to push my boyfriend into cheating, it was also the way he completely disrespected me in the process. My boyfriend said they ended up standing outside in the rain for about an hour, talking. He even half-joked later that it was the most romantic thing anyone's ever done for him, which didn't sit right with me. To this day, I don't really know how strongly he defended me in that conversation or whether he made it clear to Dave that kind of talk about me wasn't acceptable. He did say he shut it down, but I can't help wondering how firm he really was. Ever since then, I've felt uneasy about their friendship. I don't want to be the kind of girlfriend who polices who her boyfriend hangs out with, but it honestly feels like Dave crossed a serious line. Despite that, they still see each other constantly because they work together and my boyfriend tends to spend a lot of free time with his coworkers. And the more time goes by, the harder it is for me to ignore. Just yesterday, I posted about my boyfriend choosing to hang out with his work friends on our anniversary. They had plans to play D&D, and part of the prep was that Dave went over to his place the night before around 6:30 to help him make his character. At least, that's what my boyfriend told me. He'd made it sound like there would be a group of people there helping him, but it turned out it was just Dave. I only realized because we were on FaceTime when Dave rang the bell, right after my boyfriend suddenly hung up on me. He said he'd call me later once Dave left and made it seem like it wouldn't take long. But by midnight, I still hadn't heard back. When I texted to check in, he replied saying Dave was still there and they were having some drinks. Since I had work the next day, I just went to bed and figured we'd talk tomorrow. Today we finally called, and he told me he was extremely hungover because Dave didn't leave until around 4 a.m. I asked what on earth happened, because this wasn't supposed to be a big night. He explained that they started with beers, then switched to margaritas, and just lost track of time. When I pressed about what they did for literally 9.5 hours, he said it took 3 hours to finish his D&D character, and after that Dave asked him to show him how to DJ, since my boyfriend produces music and DJs on the side. I didn't push further than that, but it really unsettled me. And now, he's going to be seeing Dave again tonight for the actual D&D game. This whole thing is getting under my skin. Maybe I sound insecure, but I just don't feel comfortable with my boyfriend spending the entire night alone with someone who's confessed deep feelings for him, especially someone who openly insulted me to try and get closer to him. I know my boyfriend isn't gay, but to me it doesn't matter. If this were a girl who had confessed feelings and trashed me in the process, I'd feel exactly the same way. Even if nothing physical is happening, it feels like he's still entertaining someone's interest who clearly doesn't respect our relationship. I'm torn about whether I should bring it up to him, and if so, how. What would I even say? Comments and my replies. Someone asked if his background or religion might be influencing this, or if maybe he just likes the attention. I admitted I can't say with 100% certainty that he's not gay, I'm simply choosing to trust him right now. But I also see their point. People can come out at any stage in life, and situations like this don't make that trust easy. As for religion, I wouldn't say he was raised in a strict household. His mom is Protestant and had him baptized, but he refused to be confirmed and doesn't practice anything. His dad and siblings aren't religious at all. He also has a gay uncle, so it's not like his family would make a huge deal out of it. Of course, staying closeted doesn't always come down to religion, but I don't think that's what's going on here. The idea that he might enjoy the attention honestly hadn't crossed my mind, but the more I think about it, the more I can see it. With his personality, I could imagine him brushing it off as harmless, even though it's really hitting at my insecurities. So I think if I do bring it up, I'll frame it as being about the drama and the disrespect rather than questioning his sexuality, because that would not go over well. Another person asked if the fact that he hid the whole thing from me at first was a red flag. And yeah, it was. For a while, I really struggled with it. Right now, I'm choosing to trust that he's not secretly exploring his sexuality while in a relationship with me, and that he's not lying about anything else. Still, I know I can never be 100% sure. I will say, we do have access to each other's phones and even use Find My iPhone, so if he were hiding something huge, I doubt he'd leave that kind of trail. And to be clear, all of that was set up after this whole situation with Dave started. What one commenter said about him possibly romanticizing the incident really hit me. He probably hasn't stopped to think about how much it hurt me, or maybe he's just ignoring it because it makes things easier. Either way, it doesn't change the fact that this whole situation has left me feeling unsettled. Looking back, I realize I probably should have expected him to keep more distance from Dave after everything that went down. Maybe I've been too passive about how I really feel, but I've decided I need to talk to him directly and be honest. One commenter, Chuck Greenwald, pointed out something I hadn't considered. Maybe my boyfriend doesn't really know how to shut Dave down properly. He suggested that my boyfriend might be afraid of being accused of homophobia if he rejects Dave too strongly. As strange as that sounds, I know there are people who twist rejection of their romantic advances into rejection of their identity. And some of them can get downright vicious about it, even going as far as to ruin reputations with accusations of bigotry. Chuck said Dave strikes him as the catty type, and if my boyfriend was nervous about backlash, he could believe it. That theory honestly blew my mind, because I had never thought of it like that. But my boyfriend is 100% a people pleaser, and it fits. Dave has also recently been promoted to his supervisor at work, though, to be fair, this wasn't the case back when he confessed his feelings. Still, it could be a factor now. Chuck's comment really made me stop and think. Then someone else put it into perspective in a way that hit me hard. If Dave were a woman, and my boyfriend had gone over to her place, gotten drunk, and stayed until 4 a.m., no one would be hesitating to call it what it is: shady at best, outright cheating at worst. Just because Dave is a man doesn't make it acceptable. My boyfriend seems to like attention and doesn't always respect boundaries, and that's exactly what's bothering me. Another person pointed out that instead of protecting our relationship by distancing himself from Dave, it almost feels like my boyfriend is compartmentalizing me, like living two separate lives. And that's not okay. They said I really need to sit him down for a serious, distraction-free talk. I agreed with that advice and messaged him that we needed to talk. He was still out at the D&D game, and apparently a different friend had driven him there, so he said he couldn't leave until that friend was ready. I told him straight up that we had to talk tonight, no more waiting. Update 2. Before I get into the details, I just want to say thank you to everyone who gave me advice. Reading all the different perspectives helped me finally put my feelings into words, and it gave me the push I needed. So when my boyfriend got home from the D&D game, he called me right away. I didn't waste any time, I jumped straight in. By then, I'd been stewing all night over the feedback I'd read, and I think he was honestly shocked by how firm I was. We've never really argued like that before. I started by telling him I was deeply uncomfortable with the fact that Dave stayed until 4 a.m., one-on-one, while the two of them were drinking. He looked surprised, like he had no idea it would bother me this much, and he asked me to explain why I felt that way. I laid it out clearly. It's completely unacceptable for him to spend an entire night drinking with someone who has already tried to cross the line with him and, in the process, disrespected me and our relationship. I told him he needed to set boundaries with Dave, no exceptions. His response honestly frustrated me. He brushed it off by saying this happened months ago, that Dave was drunk when he said those things, and that he doesn't think Dave actually likes him like that anymore if he ever did. He insisted it wasn't that serious, especially since he's not gay, not curious, and doesn't share those feelings. But I told him that even if he didn't take it seriously, I did. The entire situation felt serious to me, and I felt disrespected by both of them. I explained that if this had been a woman who confessed feelings, then spent the whole night with him until dawn, I'd immediately assume something sketchy was going on. You don't entertain someone like that when you're in a committed relationship. Just because Dave is a man doesn't suddenly make it okay. He should be holding the same boundaries he'd have with a woman who propositioned him and talked trash about me. But he disagreed. He said it's different because with a woman, there's a chance of attraction or something physical happening, whereas with Dave, he doesn't see it that way. That argument drove me crazy. I told him there's always a chance of something happening when alcohol is involved, especially with someone who has already made their interest clear. Even if he sees himself as straight, how am I supposed to blindly trust that nothing could happen when he's drunk, alone, and with someone who already told him he wanted more? In what world would I be comfortable with that? The part that really eats at me is that he stayed with Dave until the early hours of the morning, knowing full well that Dave has shown contempt for me and for our relationship. At the very least, spending that much time together sends a signal to Dave that it's fine to disrespect us, and worse, that he still has my boyfriend's attention. To me, it almost feels like he's leading Dave on, especially since Dave has made it clear he's sexually attracted to him. When I confronted him, he said he understood where I was coming from but insisted it wasn't like that. He claimed he never planned for Dave to stay that late in the first place. I asked him to walk me through the entire night because I honestly couldn't wrap my head around why they needed nearly 10 hours together. According to him, when Dave arrived, they spent about 3 hours creating his D&D character while Dave explained how the game worked. They had a few beers, and then Dave asked for something stronger to drink. At some point, they FaceTimed another coworker who was hosting the campaign, and that call stretched into 2 or more hours. Apparently, it started out as D&D talk but drifted into random gossip about work and other topics. After that, he said he showed Dave the music he's been working on, taught him a bit about producing, and let him mess around with DJing. Somewhere along the line, they'd lost track of time. I challenged him on that. I told him I'd texted at 11 and again at midnight to say goodnight, so he obviously knew the time then. Why didn't Dave head home? He didn't have an answer. When I said the whole thing felt sketchy, he got defensive. He asked what I was insinuating and accused me of not trusting him. He swore he had no idea it was that late until he finally looked at the clock, and then he asked Dave to leave right away. From his perspective, the night was completely innocent. He told me he never thought it looked suspicious, and as far as he's concerned, Dave doesn't even have feelings for him anymore. To him, they're back to being just friends, like before the confession. But I told him flat out, you can't go back. Once someone admits something like that, the dynamic changes forever. Whether he thinks Dave has ulterior motives or not, the reality is that Dave put it out there, and it can't be taken back. Boundaries need to change because of it. I reminded him that by keeping things the same, he's essentially leaving the door open for Dave to keep pushing. He responded by saying that when this first happened, he did try to put distance between them, only seeing Dave at work or during group outings. But since he spends so much of his time with work colleagues, that hardly sounds like distance to me. He also claimed they hadn't hung out one-on-one in about 2 months. Maybe he's right, though I strongly suspect there were times he didn't tell me the whole story. At best, they've still been out at pubs together, and at worst, he might just be leaving out details. Since I couldn't remember specific incidents to challenge him with, I let it go. He told me their friendship felt different because he was awkward around Dave after the confession, but to me, he never showed any discomfort. From my perspective, it looked like nothing had changed at all. Then he mentioned they'd had a private talk a few weeks ago where Dave supposedly apologized, said he didn't mean what he said, and brushed it off as if it never happened. My boyfriend told me he decided to forgive and forget. That's when I told him forgiveness is fine, but forgetting isn't. You can move forward, sure, but not by pretending it never happened. Their friendship has to be different now, not for Dave's sake, but for mine and for our relationship. I also asked him why he didn't bother telling me about that conversation. He said he didn't think it mattered to me, so it never crossed his mind to bring it up. That spiraled into an argument about how he doesn't share things with me, or tells white lies, or conveniently leaves details out. I reminded him of when one of my friends, let's call him Bill, crossed a line with me. Bill touched me in a sexual way on a night out and even told my best friend that he had feelings for me. The moment it happened, I called my boyfriend, even though he was on vacation at the time, because I knew I'd be seeing Bill again at a couple of group events, including New Year's Eve. I even made sure my boyfriend was invited so I wouldn't be stuck in that situation alone. Instead of acknowledging that, my boyfriend tried to twist it. He claimed I never actually told him Bill admitted to liking me, only that I thought Bill had a crush. He implied that was the same as Dave's situation, which I thought was ridiculous. I told him point blank he was just trying to find a loophole to excuse his own behavior. I finally asked him point blank if he'd be okay with me spending an entire night drinking with Bill. He immediately said of course not. But then, once again, he tried to insist it was different. His excuse this time was that the Bill situation happened more recently. I told him by that logic, I could just wait a couple of months and then it would magically be acceptable. We went back and forth like that for a while. Eventually, he apologized. He told me it was never his intention to make me feel uncomfortable or upset, and that he honestly thought the whole thing with Dave was in the past. He also apologized for being defensive and admitted he might have been naive. He swore he didn't think Dave still had feelings for him or that there were any ulterior motives behind spending time together. Then he mentioned something that complicated things further. Now that Dave is his supervisor, he basically has control over his shifts, his vacation days, and even holiday scheduling. My boyfriend said if he alienates Dave, it could end up impacting all of that. He asked if I really wanted him to cut off Dave entirely, because he wasn't sure that was possible with the way work is structured and because their group hangs are so frequent. He added that it feels kind of sad, since Dave had been a good friend and they usually got along. I told him straight up, if Dave were truly a good friend, he never would have put him in this position. All of this is happening because of Dave's actions, not mine. I never wanted tension with his friends, but this isn't on me. He countered that it isn't on him either. So I clarified where I stood. I'm not okay with them spending time alone together outside of work. But I understand he can't avoid Dave in the workplace, and I don't expect him to. He told me he's fine with drawing that boundary, and that he never wants me to feel disrespected again. He admitted he didn't realize just how much it bothered me, but now that he does, he's willing to change things. He also said he's actively looking for a new job, so once that happens, Dave won't even be a factor in his life anymore. We touched on a few other issues during that conversation too, mostly about how I feel I'm being treated, but it was already 2 a.m., and I had work in the morning.
We agreed to continue the talk the next night and try to work through the rest. I just want to say thank you again to everyone who weighed in.
If it hadn't been for people validating my feelings, I don't think I would have had the courage to push this hard and have the conversation in the first place.
Follow up in the comments.
Someone pointed out that if Dave truly had no ulterior motives, he'd either draw a clear line between his work role and their personal friendship or back away on his own to avoid confusion. Instead, my boyfriend is leaning on the excuse that it's too complicated because of work while still claiming I shouldn't feel bothered.
That contradiction really stuck with me. I replied that I completely agree.
I'm honestly shocked my boyfriend didn't see Dave's behavior for what it was.
Dave doesn't strike me as a good guy at all.
A real friend wouldn't try to convince you to cheat, wouldn't trash your partner, and wouldn't turn around and pretend nothing happened. I told my boyfriend that if he wants to keep this friendship alive, it has to come with very firm boundaries, because otherwise, it's disrespectful to me and to our relationship.
There's also something new that makes me dislike Dave even more.
My boyfriend admitted last night that Dave has started calling him fat. Some of their coworkers even picked up on it and started jokingly calling him beefy. My boyfriend brushed it off, but I know he has some body image issues, even if he won't admit it out loud. I can only imagine those comments cut deeper than he lets on. And here's what makes it worse, he told me part of the reason he doesn't think Dave is attracted to him anymore is because of those remarks.
But to me, it screams something else entirely.
The first thing that came to my mind was negging, that manipulative tactic where someone insults you to break down your confidence. Another commenter said exactly what I was thinking. My boyfriend had his boss confess romantic feelings, try to wedge himself into our relationship, spend late nights alone with him, and now he's insulting him in front of others.
That's not just friendship. That's textbook harassment, no matter how my boyfriend wants to spin it.